So our guest today is quite young, but I really think he has so much to share with us. I want to ask Titus today, you as a mother, I know you have been passionate about books, passionate about reading.
Yeah.
From a very young age, you really were clinged to a book. So, and that led you to really read so many fantastic, amazing books through your life.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people say, "Oh, you're a good reader. I'm not a very good reader," and I think that's a terrible thing to say. I'm just not good at reading, because everybody is good at reading. You just got to create a desire for reading, and I think one of the things that helped me was that since I was a very small age, you and my father always read to me very frequently, even when I was little. It was just saying stories or reading a little book with pictures or whatever, because it created a desire for more, to read more. And I think you'll find with children that what your parents like, you end up liking more as well. So, for instance, the way to get a child to eat, beans isn't by forcing him to eat beans, but by eating beans with a smile, and then he'll see you eating them and go, "Oh,
Delicious.
I'm going to have that too." And it's the same thing with reading, from a small age, and my father was brilliant at this. And as you say, it was an age where we didn't really have iPhones or tablets, and I think it's caused a massive change in society, more than we've realized. Sort of the digital flat screen, in your pocket age.
Well, today the scene is different. Mommy and son having those moments that are so priceless. Is that word right here? Precious, priceless. And as we see, we are in a hammock on top of a hill with our tent just there. And the spacious tent we can share. And the background that we have in my hometown. And you have been chatting away here tonight. And I just wish my son would allow me to do an interview with him on the spot, because honestly, I have said that to my son a few years back, and I keep repeating, saying every time we speak, if we travel for 2 hours, 3 hours in a car, we do not lack moments, we do not lack subjects to talk about.
It's true.
He's so, what is the word I would say here? He's so, oh my
Brilliant,
God.
ingenious,
Brilliant,
incredible.
ingenious. Yes, he answered it. But then today here, even like this last past an hour, half an hour, we have been here on this hammock, just like mommy here, son there, facing each other. As my connection with him in Syntony is just like he was born yesterday and just had that first love that you have as a first time mother, first son. Anyway, so, and as he talks, I just feel, that's what I used to tell him for a few years now. Filho, I wish every time you are talking, I'm recording what you are saying. I feel like whatever you are saying, the world needs to hear. You're so relevant. And he really picks up, such a deep matters and understanding of the things that is happening in the world. And even we are talking just now about the change in the values and of the movies and the creativity that we used to have of the movies. And instead of us progressing as the technology come, it seems that the technology advanced, but the creativity has really gone bananas.
Plummeted down.
Yeah. Within all we said already here today, Titus, if you could not repeat, but then maybe just carry on talking a little bit of what you were talking about. I don't know if you are allowed to say things like that, because in our days, even though we are free to speak, but
Yeah,
you
right.
can't really say much at the moment. Even some words you can't mention it, but you were talking about creativity, and especially we're talking about.
No, I was just saying how the entertainment industry is no longer run by creativity, but only by two things. Entertainment is either created for money or for promoting a political agenda, and the majority of the time it's both. So most creators today aren't concerned at all in bringing you a good story. They're concerned
in preaching a message at you with a cheap story and seeing how much money they can make off it. And they know you're going to watch it anyway, because if you think about how many original things are ever made today, most of it's just a play on nostalgia. I mean, action movies, you only watch action movies because you've seen good action movies in the past and you like action movies. So they're not actually creating original stories, they're just recycling old ideas to make money and preach something at you. So there's no real creativity anymore. That's my depressing point of the day.
So what would be the hope? Like you said,
The
you
hope.
wish, you told me in the beginning, you wish you could read.
The hope
Redo.
is that Hayao Miyazaki is out of retirement for one movie. There is a ray of sunshine that I don't know how long will last. Good old Hayao.
So tell us who is Hayao.
Hayao Miyazaki is a Japanese artist and film writer, director, producer, animator. One of the few men who understand how a story is born and not made. So, for instance, he says in his work, he doesn't write a story and then draw his stories. He draws a picture, and then another picture, and then another picture, and the story begins to write itself. And he's really understood what it is, because if you think about it, that's what all the best stories are. Take, for example, Wind in the Willows, right? Stories are just pictures that writers get in their head and draw for you with words on a sheet of paper. It's not that a writer sits down and thinks, right, now I'm going to think of a plot, now I'm going to think of a setting, now I'm going to think of characters. No, a writer will see something or experience something or think of something or imagine something that inspires him. And with that tiny piece of information, he'll add with another inspirational piece of information and start welding these things together, and a story will be born. So the great example I like to use is Wind in the Willows, because you can see how the writers come up with a story, because he's clearly been on a walk or something and seen a willow tree, by the edge of a riverbank, and felt inspired by the beauty of the weeping willow. And maybe at the side of the river he saw a water rat, and maybe he had the idea of a water rat living on the side of the river under a willow tree. And maybe he walked further along and there was a large manor, an estate, and perhaps he saw frogs, and perhaps he saw moles, and you can see how the whole story came together now. He thinks, and you get these different pictures, these images, and you start writing what comes to your mind about them. And suddenly a story is born of a frog who lives in a manor house and has an obsession for motor cars, and how there's a water rat who lives by the willow tree, and how the mole, who is so tired of living in his hole, decides to go on a holiday and ends up meeting the water rat, and an adventure begins, and the story is therefore birthed because of a series of events, of a series of images. So I can see where the writer got his inspiration from. He didn't sit down and think, I'm going to write a story about a rat. No, he was inspired by something and a story was born. But that's because those kind of people are creative. I think this is a thing. Real writers, whether it be for film, TV, or books, you don't write things to make money, ever. You don't write things to please people, ever. You don't write things like you're not even trying to write things to be good, or to because somebody asked you to. You write stories that you think are beautiful. I think that's it.
Most of these old writers, Titus, I think when they were writing, they did not have a clue, the ones that's already dead. You read these classical books or these journals and these things. When they were writing that, they were not dreaming that is going to be famous, that will be a movie later on.
Oh, yes and no. I think, definitely there are people
they
like
wrote,
that.
Like you said, they wrote because that was their reality of life, their lifestyle.
That was their power. I mean, a lot of people write things because that's what they lived. You know, they're trying to represent what they went through. But I think you can even say, like, people like Charles Dickens, for instance. Charles Dickens was already famous for his writing before he died. But Charles Dickens never wrote a book because he says, oh, I'm Charles Dickens, I need to write new content for my fan base. No. He only ever wrote stories that he, you know, thought were good, that, you know, that pleased him. I think if you're writing something for anything other than creating something beautiful, then you're doing it wrong. Like, you'd never find an artist who paints a painting just to make money off it, you know. Says, I'm going to think of a really cool painting that I don't...
nowadays you do, because that's the modernity and the need of it.
Yeah, exactly. But like an artist who just paints something, say, I need to paint something good so I can make my, you know, the money of this month kind of thing. He's not painting out of love for his work at all. He's just painting to, you know, get a paycheck, or painting because he's been asked to. Same thing with, you know, creating a story. You never create a story just because you have to. You only ever create a story because you want to create something beautiful. You want to create something that's good. And people who really care about stories will never write a bad story. Like, maybe they're bad writers, sure. But a good writer who wants to write a story will never write a bad story. That's why if you ever watch a bad movie, it's because the producers and the directors and the writers don't care for a good story. They care for a paycheck. The good films that you've ever watched in your life are because people who wrote them actually cared about what they were doing. They cared about the story. They cared about creating something that meant something to them. I think, yeah, you're actually... it may sound selfish. This is my perception of it anyway. But you're actually writing for yourself. You never write for anyone else. You write to fulfill a personal need of creating something, and something that's good. And if it's not good enough for you, you'll work on it until it's as good as you can make it, until you feel that it's what you wanted to create, until it's perfect for you. And then you can share that with the rest of the world. But I think you write stories for yourself.
I will call you Ty, but Titus, when you say all that, in your personal life, so that we were talking earlier as well here in our chat. I wish I was already recording you then, but maybe you can bring back again when you spoke about, you know, that in the past when you were like young, you would take days and maybe a month to write 1,200 words story. And then today you are 18, and you said that you wrote 1,200 words in an hour?
10 minutes.
In 10 minutes. So it's a big kind of... And then I mentioned, well, maybe the books you have read has contributed, because you are a good reader. I am your number one fan, I would say, that I admire the consistency that you have to have always a book in your hands, reading it, not just to show off, say, hey, look at me, I'm reading a book. You are constantly with a book in your hands, which has been kind of an exception, I would say, of the generation nowadays, because we were talking about technology. You even mentioned, we start our conversation tonight by you saying, Mom, when I become a dad, I'm going to not allow my children to have technology device in their hands until they are certain age, because it is still them the chance to really be creative and read, and they only kind of watch like a monosyllable cartoon that takes them nowhere. And I think what you read, because you have read so many good books, we could spend a night here talking about all the books you have read. So what have I said now? How can you...
Well, I think it's kind of, you can only ever give out what you've taken in, right? You can only output what you've input. So when you sort of give the example, it used to take me, a month to write a short story of 1,000 words. The other day I sat down, wrote 1,000 words in 10 minutes, and I still don't, that was a very tiny story, which I'm going to elaborate on. But I think, it's with time, the more you read, the more different authors you read, different styles of writing you read, so that goes expanding your imaginative process, and you can imagine a lot more. And the whole sort of tablets and electronics at a certain age, it's not that, oh, you're not going to let your kids watch TV. No, of course not. My kids are going to watch so many movies, but they're going to watch good ones. They're going to watch films that inspire them to think, that inspire them to create, that inspire them, that give them a larger imagination. And I think one of the main problems of the world today is that the imagination is underestimated. I think people sort of consider, oh, imagination is for children and artists. You know, working class people don't need imagination. You need to learn how to be good at school and how to get a job. And I think that's such a bland way to look at life. You know, is your life really waking up in the morning, going to work and coming home? It's like, is that really such a dull way to live? If you have no imagination, how are you going to conquer the world? You know, how are you going to create something new? It doesn't need to be something written or painted or sung. It doesn't need to be in that artistic area. It's in every aspect of life. If you have no imagination, you're a person of no color, you're boring. So I think, you know, my kids, they're going to read so many books, they're going to watch so many movies, so many TV shows, but they're not going to be allowed to waste time doing nothing, you know. And I think the problem with technology today is that you do end up spending the majority of your time doing nothing, absolutely
or
nothing.
watching what somebody else is doing
Yeah,
can be very shallow.
Exactly. I think there are films that are great, there are TV shows that are great, but I think just the internet in itself is designed to be a time saver, but also a time waster. So even though, you know, I can search up the definition of metamorphosis, like in a blink of an eye, instead of having to look it up in a book the whole time, you know, and find a book and look it up in the book and in a dictionary. So yes, it's a time saver, but it's also an incredible time waster, because you can spend 3 hours without blinking, and you don't even know how much time you spent, and an hour later you can't even remember what you were looking at, what you were doing, 3 hours ago. So it doesn't advance your mind at all, and you end up getting hooked, and yeah, really quite terrible. So I think my children need to be exposed to things that help them think.
Titus, you mentioned it earlier as well. I mean, you were a Doctor Who fan.
Oh yeah, big time.
The real one. I mean, when I say real one, is because
you're going to offend a lot of politically correct people.
Well, anyway,
13th Doctor is not canon. End of story.
Okay, so but what you said earlier was like, I wish I could buy.
Well, yeah, I think the first thing I did, no, I'm not going to say when I am very rich and prosperous and have enough money to own some sort of movie studio, which I probably intend on doing because I'm tired of not having enough creativity in the world. The first thing I'm going to do with a lot of money is buy Doctor Who from the BBC, which has done a wonderful job of massacring the show. Thank you so much. And the reason being is that I don't think there has ever existed a character with a premise more liberating than Doctor Who. Because if you think about it, the show has no bounds to creativity. It has no barriers, because you are allowed, the Doctor changes face, so you're not limited to an actor.
That's right.
And he has a machine that can travel through time and space, so you're not limited to the time frame, so you can write and create a story about any period of time that has happened and be creative with anything in the future. But also you've got all of the universe to explore. So if you're not happy with simply writing stories about Earth and about humans, you can create your own worlds and your own species and your own rules somewhere off on the other end of the universe. So really, the story has no limits. It's the creative paradise. You can literally invent whatever you want with a brilliant character. And so it really is the perfect show for creativity, for sci-fi. And the BBC have done a wonderful job of doing exactly what I was saying. They've hired a brand new team that does not care at all for the show, doesn't understand the character, doesn't understand the show, even simple common knowledge of the show, but all the people on the team check the right social boxes and say the right political things, and so they're hired and absolutely massacre the show because they know there is 5 million faithful watching Britons who pay for the show automatically through taxes for the ridiculous TV license bullcrap, which is, if I was Prime Minister, the first thing I would disband is I would get rid of the ridiculous TV license which Britons are forced to pay in their taxes, so to feed shows like like modern Doctor Who on the BBC. And so, you know, we actually have to pay to receive garbage. And I would buy back the rights to that show, uncanonize anything probably from the 12th or 11th Doctor onwards, and rewrite the show from then on. Because it's a creative paradise and they're using it literally for money and preaching a political agenda. It's exactly what I said at the beginning. There is no creativity at all. The plots are a mess. The story's a mess. The characters are, you know, they're just creating pothole after pothole of flaws in the story, and really, and the whole point of it, there is no point. It's just to check political boxes, make money off Britons who are forced to pay, and
wow, that's a kind of a
yeah. It's like you're not even given the option to give Doctor Who money or not. You literally, you're forced to pay to watch Doctor
Titus,
Who.
but do you think that out of what you have been writing already, you have been writing for a while, kind of silently, and even as a mother, I try to respect your privacy in terms of not be kind of going around reading what you are writing, because I know the right time, I'm sure you will come to me and say, Mom, look at this, because time to time you do that. Actually, sometimes you say, Mom, look what I wrote. So, and I delight myself in your word. Obviously, I'm your mother, and I admire you from day one, from before conception. You already loved. So obviously, you're always going to have my admiration, my kind of motherly care and praises and all that. But do you think that out of what you already been writing, maybe like you said, you would buy Doctor Who back, but why wouldn't you be probably creating a new show, a new character that maybe right now you're not thinking you are? Because like you said, you don't do things thinking you are already selling it. You're already creating out. So anyway.
The thing about writing is the baby has to be yours. You know, the story has to be yours. If Doctor Who is a character, you know, I can't steal from him. I can't take from him. Like, I thought of maybe, you know, making a similar character, but the thing is, you can't, because the idea's already been written. And I think it's stupid, but it's just something that writers have, is that if it's already been written by someone else, you can't write that. You can continue the work for someone, that's something else. But when you create something, it needs to be something that comes from you. It can't come from something else, you know. You'd never be happy with something like that. But that's why I'd be absolutely 100% fine with buying Doctor Who and rewriting some of the show. But I would never be happy with writing a character like Doctor Who, because then...
No, maybe not like his, but then you would...
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't
but
know.
you probably are, don't know, with your what your creativity, don't know, I feel freedom to say that. I know there are something coming up there. Soon you'll be able just to start sharing with us some of your little short stories that you have already written. Well, there is some short ones and there is some long ones.
They've been finished ages ago.
Well, anyway, what I want to kind of wrap up this conversation is maybe you can.
Well, to answer your question, I was writing a story which I planned on on being short. I planned on the whole story being 10,000 words, and you think, oh, 10,000 words, that's a lot, or maybe that's not much. It wasn't supposed to be a long story at all. It was really supposed to be a short anecdote. Not supposed to be a book, just a story.
But do you have
And-
intention to
Well,
start to
the
publish
thing is, I'm already 15,000 words through, and I'm on like chapter 3.
My goodness, go for it, my darling.
It's
Day and
like-
night.
Well, maybe not chapter 3. I haven't put it in. You don't
chapters.
put it in chapters. I don't, at least, when I write. You sort of chapter it later, I guess. But sort of, it's only a third. Yeah, it's only a third of the way through, if that.
Yeah,
Maybe a fourth.
Titus, I
way
interviewed
through.
you last June 2020 when you turned 18, and we spoke a lot. I mean, we are just in the midst of the lockdown and whatever was going on around the world, and it hasn't been 1 year yet. But I think you used a lot the kind of pandemic lockdown opportunity to develop this right inside of you. What would you have to say? Because we don't know yet what is ahead. I know many young people in England right now and all the countries that are still in lockdown in a more severe way than Brazil. They are struggling because I know I have spoken to even some of my godchildren. They are finding it so hard to keep on this kind of impasse, like this.
Yeah.
So what would you say that could motivate them maybe to use their creativity to...
Well, things like, you can say, well, I'm not a writer, I'm not gifted at drawing, I'm not gifted at, these kind of artistic things. I think you don't need to be. I think sort of, I understand, being locked inside, not being able to see friends and colleagues and participating in things that were day-to-day life, is frustrating, of course. I think if you want to find the alternative, your mind is a universe creator. I think if you think about it, we were made in the image and likeness of God, so the image is in the way our bodies are structured, as in we look like God, but then the likeness of God isn't talking about your image, it's talking about your nature. So if you think about it, God created a universe by speaking words in 7 days. So God has the imaginative capacity to create all that you see around you, and he has the imaginative capacity to create much more, which is why I think the second earth and heaven, you're going to see so many glories, is because God has no limits. He can create what he wants. And though we don't have the power to physically create things like God can, we're still made in his likeness, so we have the imaginative capacity to create like God can. So, God created this earth, and he created mountains and waterfalls and trees. So when you look at a mountain, a waterfall, or a tree, you can create your own reason to being of it. You can create your own mountains, you can create your own trees, you can create your own stories, you can create, well, I'm going to stories again, but sort of the imagination is something so powerful. You could design your own earth if you wanted to, the way you'd create it. Maybe you want trees that have roots on top and leaves under the ground. I don't know. Maybe you want to create waterfalls that instead of falling down, they float outwards.
But with that, you are telling them to...
What I'm saying is that since there is no limit to your imagination, you don't need... I don't even know what I'm saying. I'm going down the path of the writer again. But
but they can at least find out inside of them.
Yeah, exactly. I think one of the things we need to understand is that if you ever come to the point in your day where you're feeling bored, it's because your mind isn't busy enough. And that doesn't mean you need to be doing something. It just means that you need to be more active mentally, because even if it's just sitting and thinking, man, I sit and I just think about stuff, and before I realize that, I've passed a good part of my day and I've not wasted any time. So I think if you think I'm bored, just find things to do, because if your mind has the power to create universes, then your mind has the power to create things to do around the home, whether it be trying something new like cooking, or inventing a game, or inventing something to do. Your mind has that
power. Create a
power.
routine for the day, because sometimes if you don't think through what you want to do that day, you obviously going to come to a point that you say, oh, what do I do now? What do I do? But if you have already ideas, through the day, or even like the night before, you just write down a list of things that you could have done. I have never done an interview so powerful like this one. Imagine having an interview with your son on a hammock and he's doing like a foot massage as we talk. That's only for mothers. Well, that's part of the massage, isn't it? That's the first step of it. That's great. Thank you so much, Titus. We want to conclude this interview by by the way, is encouraging all the teens around the world that are listening to our voice in English. Obviously, we're talking in English now. Use 2021 not to be a despair kind of year, just already thinking, oh my goodness, it can't be worse than 2020. And yes, it does
can.
not, it can be, but it does not need to be. Yeah.
It does not need to be. So yeah, I think there are so many things that you can do, so many films that you can watch, so many books that you can read, things that will inspire you, things that will cause you to dream, cause you to think of big things for your future, that can be so beneficial to you, instead of, spending your day scrolling through Lord have mercy TikTok or whatever the others are called. And because I think if you fill your hours with such superficial things like that, which you're going to forget in 5 minutes, you're going to feel that sense of I've accomplished nothing. And I think that's the worst thing for a teenager. I remember one day I got so upset with myself because I accomplished nothing that day. And I think there's no greater feeling of frustration. And maybe you don't get the frustration, but I think one of the main, I'm not going to say that, I think a good reason as to why people feel frustrated in a time of lockdown is because you feel that you're not accomplishing enough. And maybe don't use the excuse that, oh, it's because I can't go outside, it's because I can't see my friends. No. You can accomplish so many things by yourself in your room, in your house.
Yeah.
So don't set yourself barriers that are gonna stop you from accomplishing things.
Yeah. That's at the moment you are reading
Lewis.
Oh my goodness,
C.S. Lewis.
C.S. Lewis. And he was an inspiration of his time as well, where
Absolutely.
he learned at a young age to be so creative. I mean, you are reading right now the one little version of his biography that he wrote himself.
Yeah, well, it's also an interesting character, because if you think about it, he wasn't in a lockdown or anything, but he didn't really have much time with his parents. Was quite a lonely child, and by the time he was 8 years old, he'd already created what he calls the world of the animals, which was an island off the coast of India. Because if you think of a little boy's mind at the time, sort of peak of the British Empire, the British were colonizing India. India's sort of this mysterious world far away, and then just off the coast of India, there's an even more mysterious island where animals reign like human beings, kind of thing. So you can see the imagination of a child going off, and he just used to write these things down, and he created himself an entire little country, a little world of his own, and that was at 8 years old. So he was a very impressive guy. But I think sort of what ties in he didn't have many things to do, so he created things to do. Didn't waste his time. I think if you're at home and you're looking for things to do, just do things that you know you're going to feel like you've accomplished something at the end, whether that's, writing something, reading something, working out, or washing the dishes.
Your
mother will love it. But it's something that you will finish and you'll feel, look, I accomplished this. I accomplished that, because a sense of accomplishment is something needed by humans. Humans go into depression when you're not accomplishing anything.
So true.
It's true, because then you feel like you're worthless. Because, it's not that you should get a sense of worth from accomplishing something, but it gives you a sense of value when you are accomplishing a purpose, And so do things that will give you a sense of accomplishment, and there are so many things you can do in your home. So like during quarantine, I tried taking up baking. It was a horrible, horrible failure. And,
But you had fun.
I had fun.
You laughed with you
and
guys.
even though, every time that came out wrong or gross or hard or burnt, it was so much fun. But I felt accomplished. I felt that I had
tried.
I
you
tried.
were so faithful to
and I
follow
was so faithful
to follow the recipe.
the recipes. And I honestly had so much fun, and then so much disappointment as my siblings spat the stuff out at the end. But I had a sense of accomplishment because I felt like I didn't waste my time. I earned valuable experience.
And you are about to start again. I'm very happy to hear that.
I am, I think.
Well, you asked about the machine today. I said we had one.
No, that's why I wanted to know if we had a rice cooker. That's not because I'm stunned.
Oh, I took that as it is. So here we go.
That was a question of practicality.
Anyway, Titus, just coming back, so we are able to finish this heart-to-heart conversation. I heard this week a phrase which I loved it. It's by the mayor of Goiânia, our hometown here in Goiás. And he said something interesting. He said, we all need to have an intelligent faith. Some people mixed up like faith as this mystic, blind date. I mean, it's like it's just an imagination without kind of reason. And he was telling like you need sometimes, if you believe something, you need to have like an intelligent way, in an active way, to make that faith, that belief, to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise you spend all your life like, oh, I will have faith. I hope I have faith one day that will happen. And he was saying, listen, it's not one day anymore. If you believe something, you must give some steps and use this imagination that you have to put into action what you believe.
I think I understand what he's saying. I think because you're translating from Portuguese, uma fé inteligente. I think what he's trying to say in English is you need to have, a faith that is. Oh God, I had the word in my mind.
Active?
No. It's a faith.
Creative?
No. It's you have to have faith in something that is provable, that you need to have a solid faith. You can't have okay, let me think of an example to explain this better. For instance, I don't have faith in Jesus Christ just because I heard of it and like, oh, you know what, I'm going to believe in Jesus. No, I have faith in Jesus Christ for two main reasons, or three main reasons. But the main reasons is because of personal experience with Christ, and the second main reason is because of Christ has been proven to me through the Scripture and through observing the world and what has been said. What's in the Bible and what's the church is. Christ has been proven to me. It's not that I have faith in something unproven, something mystical. It's not like I'm going to suddenly say, I have faith in Father Christmas. It's like, okay, prove to me Father Christmas exists. Well, I believe in him. But you haven't proven to me that he exists. Do the presents actually come? Does he actually fly in a sleigh? Prove that stuff to me. Well, I can't. Then why do you believe in him? Because, I want to. You know, that's not faith. That's, you know, that's just imagination, I guess. Faith is
Action, isn't it?
yeah. Faith is believing in something you know to be true. Faith isn't believing in something that isn't true. And I think when he's sort of talking about having an intelligent faith, he means having a faith in something that is solid, that is firm.
So therefore you can
So therefore,
plan.
you know,
You can.
yeah,
you
exactly,
can
exactly.
Because some
How
people.
do you expect to explain your faith if you can't explain what you believe in?
But Titus,
And
I think
this
when,
is true not just with faith in Christ, but with your beliefs in anything, whether it be political or social or whatever. You know, how can you believe in something if you can't explain it? And I think this is something that everybody's got to understand before you criticize somebody else. Is, do you actually know what you believe? And that's something we have to learn when you're learning to debate. When you're learning to debate, when you're learning different things like that, you always study first your point. When you go into debate, obviously you need to study what the other person is going to talk about, but first of all, you've got to be 100% confident in what you're going to say. Because if you don't know what you're talking about, how on earth do you expect to explain to someone else what he's talking about? You know.
I know what you mean. Filho, I know our time is coming to an end here at Heart2Heart, and I know we could record part 2 here, because I never feel tired of listening to you, talking to you, and that's a wonderful thing for a mother to say. It's not like that game you were listening to the other day. Let's just finish
What
with
game?
a joke. With a joke, because you are my kind of joke teller that comes, and I laugh after every joke you come and share with me. You said that the other day you were watching a program or whatever, I don't know, and you said that the guy said, "Have you ever been in a place where people don't
Okay. Yeah.
are telling bad about you and they think that you don't understand the language?" Can we finish with that joke?
I think reasonable faith is what I'm looking for.
Reasonable faith.
Reasonable
That's what's
faith.
right.
A faith that you can reason. Exactly. Yeah. Reasonable faith.
Yeah, but I think when I was, we go back to the joke just to finish it. But what I was talking about as well, about the intelligence faith Titus, what he was telling us was like this: some people, they only believe, but they don't act. They just wait that one day an angel will come from heaven and do that thing for
Drop a
them.
bag of
When he
money.
said like that, the mayor was saying like, listen, we need to have our faith, but we need to have our action.
Of course.
Because if you believe that what you believe is right and true, right? Thank you very much.
Sorry.
If you believe that what you believe, then you act
You act on
accordingly.
it.
You do something. You
course.
don't be waiting. And that's what I think what we want to encourage all the young people out there.
You believe a
If you
flood's
believe
coming,
something, just
you build
go
a
for
boat.
it. Make some action. Come to Brazil. Spend some time with us here. Let's work with some projects here together. And even if you're not young people and you are elderly, you can travel. We will have
Young,
all sorts
elderly,
of
there
ideas.
is no middle.
Yeah, whatever.
If you're not young, you're elderly.
Well, sort of like I am in the middle.
Exactly, the middle-aged people.
Anyway,
Yeah.
finish with a joke.
Right, so I think a lot of us have been in this situation before, when you're going on with your daily business and you end up, or maybe this is you, maybe this has happened to you, that somebody starts talking in another language and you can understand what they're saying and they don't know, or that you're the person talking in the other language and you don't know the person is understanding you. So you've got to be very careful what you say, right? So, but there was one kid who was on his train, on a train in London, and they were from India, from Pakistan, I'm not sure. I think India probably, because they were speaking Hindi. But he was telling me that he was just a young boy. He was on this train in London on the tube. There were these two people standing next to him on the train speaking in Hindi, and they didn't know that he spoke Hindi. And the two people were saying to each other, "Look at this kid, isn't he ugly, isn't he fat, what a dumbass, probably worthless, good-for-nothing child." He looked up at them with tears in his eyes and said, "Mama, Papa, I can understand you."
I don't know if you got it, but
I don't know if you got
Anyway,
it.
what we're really saying is be careful when you talk about
Yeah,
others.
be careful.
Actually, Titus and I made a decision, serious decision, wasn't it, Philly, that out of our mouth, and this is from the sermon last Sunday with our wonderful pastor Aloisio, who shared with us wherever he comes from, his source of information, but it's the Word of God anyway. So we made a decision that out of our mouth.
I encouraged you to make a decision that I'd already made. Clarifying. Carry on.
Yeah, but in terms of like out of our mouth is not going to come criticism. It's so easy to criticize somebody. It's so easy to hear about somebody, a negative report, and then you create that in yourself. You don't question if that is true or not, and you already create a barrier towards that person because you heard that that person is not that great or is not that strong or is a weak person, and then you just believe in what somebody says without really having a positive way to think of somebody. Everybody has negative things in their lives. Who is on earth is perfect and not going to have one flaw, one something wrong in their lives? But then whatever people says about somebody, you need to think, what is the good side of that person? What is the good side that I can admire, I can praise, and also out of your mouth you're not going to say negative things about anybody. You're only going to be encourager, and that's how I want to finish Heart to Heart today. You can't see my face, but you can hear my voice, and I'm here behind the camera because I'm filming it and interviewing it. But be encouraged to be a source, a fountain of blessing. Whatever situation you are right now, if it's in the midst of the pain, if it's in the midst of the loss you have gone through, do not allow hardness and bitterness to install in your heart. May the peace of Jesus, may the love of Jesus and the water of the Spirit wash away all the pain, all the sadness, and all the criticism that you have received or given. And may the fire of the Spirit burn away all negativity out of your life, so you are able to breathe in faith, breathe in joy, breathe in peace, so you are able to breathe out and speak out as well all those things, the good things that are in Jesus through you. God bless you, and out of you.
I'm not going to say anything because otherwise your last comment's going to get me started on how the world has bought into identity politics, and if I get into that, we're going to be here for another hour and a half, so maybe more.
And this is Titus Timothy Bontempo Stevens, 18 years old, February 2021, Heart to Heart, Sylvia TV. God bless.
Bye.
That you're talking today, sharing with us, Titus, was deep stuff. Was very prophetic and very inspiring to thousands, and I pray millions and billions of people, young people that are out there, that would receive what Titus shared today from God's heart to your heart, so you are able to have the same hope he has, that you are able to say the same thing, just Maranatha, come Lord Jesus, come. That means just like I long to go to where I belong, but while we need to live here, we make a decision that every day will matter, every day will count, and we will live our best, loving God above all things and loving each other as we love ourselves.
Father, thank you for every young person that's hearing my voice right now.
Pai, obrigado por todos os jovens que estão ouvindo minha voz
And I
agora.
pray that the fire of heaven
E eu oro que o fogo do
would
de céu
burn
do céu
in their hearts,
vai queimar no coração
that
deles.
fresh anointing would be
Que unção
released,
fresca vai ser liberado na
that
vida
they would have
deles.
a clear vision
Que eles vão ter uma visão
of their
clara
place in this end time move of
do
God.
seu lugar nesse fim dos tempos.
I
no
know.
plano de Deus. Eu sei.
You've got new places for them.
Eu sei que você tem novos
I
lugares
know
para
there are
eles.
multitudes waiting
Eu sei que há multidões esperando
to hear their words
para ouvir suas
and
palavras
to receive the touch of the
e
Lord.
para receber o toque de Deus.
So Lord, fill them with the Holy Spirit
Então,
today.
Pai, enche eles com o Espírito Santo hoje.
Give them a fresh fire in
Dá a
their
eles fogo
hearts.
fresco nos seus corações.
And Lord, let today be a turning point
E que hoje pode ser dia de virada,
and a doorway moment
uma porta
for them to come into a new
para
level
eles entrar num
of
novo nível de
ministry
ministério,
and of blessing
de bênção.
in Jesus' mighty
Em
name.
nome de Jesus.
Hallelujah. Now, if you agree with that prayer,
Se você
I want
concorda
you
com
to
essa
shout
oração,
out 3 times.
eu quero que você grite
Amen.
3 vezes.
Say it with
Amém.
me.
Diga comigo.
Amen.
Amém.
Amen.
Amém. E
Amen.
amém.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
God bless you. The
Deus
Lord
te
is
abençoe.
with you. And if
Deus
God
está
be for
com você,
you,
e se Deus está
who
contigo,
can be against
quem
you?
pode estar contra
Love
você?
you lots. God bless.
Muito amor. Deus te abençoe.